Welcome back to another episode of the Bangin podcast. Tonight I have the co-host of Shooting USA, John Scoutten. Hope I pronounced that right. This is going to be a cool one. I met him for the first time at my first Nationals in 2018. Ran into him a bunch since then. Super cool dude. Also competitive shooter and just a legit outdoor enthusiast and firearms advocate. So he's going to be a good one to have on the podcast. Should be on here any minute. In the meantime, hope everybody's enjoying their Sunday. Sorry, my dog barking in the background. There we go. John's on. So we'll go ahead and send him a request. There we go. All right. Hey, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? How's this for technology? That's
Right?
pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
I'm telling you, man, this is a lot of people give me ask questions why I do these live on Instagram, and it just for me it's better. You get to interact with people. People get to see the whole thing from start to finish if they want live, and then if they miss it, they can still go back and listen to it.
Well, and then on top of that, you've got the interactive piece where people in real time are able to comment and join in. And I'm watching all kinds of people joining in right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, man. Well,
Yeah.
dude, thank you for coming on. I'm excited for this one. I have been watching you on TV for years, long before I was in shooting.
That's a massive compliment. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this because it's super cool. And I think getting an opportunity to talk to the people who are a part of your audience specifically is something that I'm excited to do.
Absolutely. Well, for
Yeah,
those
man.
who don't know, just give a little brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, so I'm John Scoutten, Shooting USA currently, and for the longevity of our show, it's been on Outdoor Channel. And I say we, Jim Scoutten, Jim's my dad, has been the face and the voice of the shooting sports on television since 1993. And believe it or not, I was working with him at day one, at the beginning, back when we were doing American Shooter on ESPN. I was 19 years old. I was in college, but it was a good gig as a freelancer to tote around the batteries and the tapes necessary to make television back in those days. And I've been around it ever since then. And we've been very thankful and blessed to continue to expand the brand called Shooting USA since 2004. And, we're still going. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
That's incredible, man. I mean, I honestly don't know of another television show dedicated to shooting and outdoors that has been going as long as this one has.
Well, I mean, the caveat of the shooting and outdoors piece is the one that makes it unique. But if you look at any television show under any title that's been running as long, you got to start with like Wheel of Fortune and then The Simpsons and stuff like that before you get to something that's been on for as long. So, yeah, we're very, very fortunate. And like I said, the Outdoor Sportsman's Group Outdoor Channel, once we found our home there, that's been ideal. Stan Kroenke, the man who owns all of that, is an avid outdoorsman and an avid hunter. And he actually bought that group of networks to make sure there would be a place for two-way friendly type of things like what our show is, but also like all of the hunting titles that they have. So, yeah, shout out Outdoor Sportsman's Group and Outdoor Channel specific.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because especially now, there's not a lot of outlets for people who are firearms enthusiasts or outdoor enthusiasts. Y'all are the last of the Mohicans, to be honest.
Well, what I think is really cool about what you're doing is we're leveraging a section of meta, which arguably isn't friendly to the shooting sport specifically, but we're using it to talk to and come together with a bunch of other like-minded people to discuss something we're into, and that's the shooting sports, practical shooting. So yeah, it's cool. What's very interesting about OSG and the Outdoor Sportsman's Group, Outdoor Channel, and the other family of networks there is they are seeing the writing on the wall, which is the shift away from traditional cable towards streaming. And, everybody at this point streams in one way or another. And, Years ago, Outdoor Channel, Outdoor Sportsman's Group acquired an entity called My Outdoor TV, which, funny enough, occupied space in the same building we're in here in Franklin, Tennessee. And their deal was they were some programming guys that had left TNN, and they had an operation where they were taking the old tape, the 3/4 inch tape and the Beta SP tapes of all the old Bill Dance and all of the different stuff from the 80s that used to be on TNN. And they were digitizing all of that old analog tape television to make a streaming service under their own kind of roof, trying to do it themselves. And it never really got traction, but they had developed this huge library of all of this stuff. And Outdoor Sportsman Group was like, that's valuable. That title works for us. And we see this direction as that's going to be the future. So they bought MOTV, and they have continued to post, and boost it up and move it along. And it's a subscription base, but you get all of the content, including Shooting USA, including Impossible Shots, that's ever been on Outdoor Channel or Sportsman or Pursuit or Fishing or any of their networks. It's there to stream, basically like a Netflix. And it's one of those things. They recognized that years ago, and now just in this past year, there's more people getting their version of entertainment in their home via streaming than by cable delivery. I mean, it has finally tipped over. So it's an interesting time to sort of watch technology continue to evolve. But that's what I think is so cool about this, is that we're at a grassroots level. You've developed a podcast, you've developed a brand under Bangin Brass that people know. And especially if you're into USPSA or IPSC competition, you know the name Bangin Brass, and you get names from that world. And at the same time, we're able to leverage Meta, which I think is pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome, man. You hit the nail on the head. Maybe one day I'll grow this thing big enough to be bought by Outdoor Channeling around.
Well, right. Hey! That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
there you
go. Man, I tell you what, I want to dive deep. So
yeah, let's go. I'm in, dude. I'm all about it.
You said you started originally hauling around the camera equipment for your dad and the crew. Yep. What year was that?
1993. So I was 93. I was 19 years old.
So 93, you start basically in the production side.
Mm-hmm.
How long before you did that did you decide, okay, now's the time, or somebody decided now's the time to bring John into the forefront and have you start producing on TV?
That's an excellent question. And the answer to that is one that it was an opportunity, and it was not related to the shooting title that this other production company had. I was 19, I was out of high school. So it was a year out of high school. I was sort of on my way to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State, to get a fine art photography degree, right at the end of film photography before the advent of digital. And this opportunity to work with them freelance was offered to me. And so, I did that off and on. I also valet parked cars and did other things like that to make ends meet kind of as a college student. But having the opportunity to be around that production and work for that specific production company got me the opportunity, when they expanded some of their automotive titles, to take a associate producer position initially. And that quickly evolved into a studio director job. So they had, and a lot of people recognize Jim not only from the shooting sports, but also from the automotive programs. It was originally Road Test Magazine, but they quickly evolved that title into Car and Driver TV. And Jim was the host of that show. And in addition to that, they had 2 studio-based sort of aftermarket modification of car shows. One of which is still on the air today. That company still exists and is still doing their thing. But it was then called Horsepower TV, and then the other title was Trucks TV. And those were studio-based, like I say. They would do projects on different cars, and they essentially moved me into a position to be a full-time, what they first called associate producer, but then I became a director. And at that moment, it was like, all right, do you continue in pursuit of a fine art photography degree, or do you take this full-time opportunity for a production company, which is basically a step in the right direction? So, the answer was pretty pretty straightforward at that point. So that was mid 90s. That was like 96, 97. By 2000, 2001, things started to change at that company. In 2003, they decided they were no longer going to continue the shooting sports title. They were going to put all of their focus into the automotive titles, and they expanded that in a number of different directions, and they were very successful with that. But that left Jim in a position where he's like, hey, listen, we've spent the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years developing shooting sports on television. I'm not ready to just stop doing that. And that was when we made the decision to break away from that company, start our own very small production company with the help of a couple of key investors who we had met in the automotive world. And at that time, it was Outdoor Life Network, which was going to be the home for the show. And in 2004, we were able to launch Shooting USA on Outdoor Life Network. At that point, I was still not in front of the camera. In 2004, I was the producer. I was bringing crews focused, at least under my kind of angle, was the practical shooting sports, the USPSA coverage, multi-gun coverage, things like that, Bianchi Cup. Those were my assignments. We had another guy at that time who was more focused on the Camp Perry style, kind of high power stuff. We did a lot of NRA silhouette at that time, which was interesting. We haven't really done much of that lately or in the last, I don't know, even 5 or 6 years. But my focus was always the practical shooting sports of whatever description. That also included IDPA. We were able to get the ball rolling on OLN, and behind the scenes, OLN was a benefit to us because they are, or under that title, they were a Comcast network. So everybody at that time who had Comcast cable automatically, without having to get an extra package or anything else, got Outdoor Life Network, whether you wanted it or not. If you had Comcast cable, you had OLN. And that meant, I don't know, something like 125 million households at that time had that particular network. So
That's huge.
It was a big position for us. OLN started to evolve and changed. They kind of changed the focus of the network and to encompass not UFC fighting, but it was a different kind of cage fighting. And that's when they changed the name of the network to Versus. They still had an outdoor kind of man versus wild angle, so they still had the hunting side of the house, but they started to pull back on the idea that they wanted shooting sports involved. And that was when we found our way to Outdoor Channel. Versus went on to become another network, and it's fine, it's good, but relying at this point on, and I guess I'm getting away from the question, which was when did I finally make my transition?
Let's keep going, yeah.
But that was about the 2008 range is when I started to kind of emerge and start to become somebody who would actually speak on camera. It was never kind of hidden that I was involved, but before then I had never really taken an initiative to be in front of the camera and to start presenting things of one nature or another. And when you look back at the stuff from like 08 through 2010, 2011, it's pretty rough. You can tell I'm pretty nervous. And it takes a while to kind of develop a personality and to be able to present in such a way where you're not stiff. And one of the things that Jim has always tried to impress upon me that I've never had any success with is he comes from a news background. So back in the 80s, back when I was like elementary school, he was a news anchor in Phoenix, Arizona on the CBS affiliate. Like every Monday through Friday at 5, 6, and 10, Jim Scoutten was the anchor of the CBS News in Phoenix. And I would go with him on Fridays and sometimes on Saturdays to the news studio and hang around on the set. And he'd do the 5, and then he'd do the 6. We'd go out and get something to eat, and then come back and he'd do the 10 o'clock. And my thing was I would hang out with the graphics guys because back then they didn't have computer graphics. These guys would make like physical boards that were the things that would pop up, and they had a separate camera that would film it and they would superimpose it and stuff. So it was kind of that art angle, but it was before, I mean, way before internet, but before computer graphics and television and all those things. And
yeah,
he would implement an in-ear monitor. So he had a teleprompter that would read off all of the things, but he would also pre-record things that he wanted to say or deliver in the form of a script. And he would listen to his own voice in his ear and repeat that. And that was how he memorized the easy way. Well, He still does that to this day. He can do 2 minutes. He can do 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. He'll read it. And as long as he has read it to himself, he plays it back in a wireless earpiece. And he has always said to me, you should learn how to do this. You have to learn how to do this. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a run. Like, we'll try.
That sounds hard as hell.
Well, you can do it. Like, it's pretty easy to do if you're just going to sit there, or if you're just going to, like, fold your hands and sit at a desk and talk to a camera. You can do it. But as soon as you start trying to manipulate, for instance, a firearm, a rifle, or something like that, as soon as you start trying to show somebody something or demonstrate something, at least for me, it's over. It takes too much of the brain power to either repeat, but to also manipulate something with the hands. So it had to be a trade-off. So for me, it's been one of those things where as long as I've written what I'm going to present and I have an understanding of what I'm going to show you, I can get through it and I can do a minute on camera, no problem. So that was that kind of tipping point for me, where I went from being kind of hard to watch, kind of hard to listen to, even for myself especially, to, all right, he kind of has a feel, he kind of has a way to present. And that has thankfully grown into what we're doing now, which is, I don't know, we're to a point where it's a little more than 50-50 Jim versus John. I mean, you'll pretty often you'll hear his voice as the open of the show. Pretty often you'll see him as the first person that you see to start off the show, unless it's a lead that I've produced, like for a USPSA Nationals or something like that. Then in those cases, you'll see me. He still likes to have his voice on it. And I like his voice on it too, because it gets people's attention. And that's
Great voice.
One of those things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. I'm also into cars, and
Oh, yeah.
I saw him on old automotive stuff,
Sure.
especially old YouTube videos, old
Oh, yeah.
automotive YouTube videos.
Yep.
And then when I got into shooting sports and started getting more and more into it, and then you start to dive deeper into Shooting USA, I'm like, God, I've seen him before. And then I watched an old YouTube video and was like, he did trucks too. Holy shit. Yeah,
That's
you don't
right.
put that together. But yeah. So 2008, 2009, you start getting in front of the camera.
Yep.
How long was it before it just because eventually I imagine it gets to where it's just another thing. It's just something else you do. How long did it take before it was just almost automatic for you?
One of the big things that was a helper to me was when Mike Irvine joined the show. And we met Mike Irvine, and we were in Barry, Illinois for one of the nationals there, and at PASA. And Mike Voigt was still the president of the USPSA at the time. And Mike came around and he was like, hey, John, I got a local guy here, sports guy. He's doing a package. See if you can help him out. Help him get us, help him figure out how to tell the story of what this is. He's doing it himself. He's by himself. And that sports guy, one-man bander, was Irvine. And he had a old beat up camera, an old beat up tripod. And he came around and, Jim was still in the field with us at that time, but I'm producing and all that. And I'm like, okay, this is what you want to see. These are the people and I'm pretty sure it was a single stack. I want to say it was a single stack nationals. And so, Robbie's the guy at that point. And he got a soundbite from Voigt and got a soundbite from Robbie. And he kind of mirrored what we were doing on one of these courses of fire, pretty simple stuff. And then he flips the camera around and I'm watching what he's doing and stuff. And he starts talking to the camera. So he's finishing his package that's going to be part of the local news later that day. Right. And the poor guy, the tripod's kind of leaning and stuff because it's very, very small market, very budget stuff. Well,
yeah,
Jim's like, that guy's got something. There's something there. And I was paying attention to how he was delivering on camera. He was very conversational. And that, I think, was the thing that, for me at least, changed very much this is the new this, that, and the other thing to, hey, here's something that I like, and I think you guys will like it too. This is the new whatever it is. You know what I mean? It becomes a little more of a, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you something because, you're my buddy, you're my friend. Get in here. I want to talk to you a little bit about this. It's something that I've figured out I want you to know versus, a presentation, very stiff. And he was always really good at that. And I learned from him. We actually, with his guidance and that kind of experience as a sports reporter, started to evolve the way we presented some of the shooting sports, adding in things like the monitor, where we'll do a rundown of scores and different things like that, explaining a little more of the minutia of how things are scored or why somebody's doing well versus why somebody didn't do well, as opposed to just, here's the next guy, here's what he's done, and then on to the next thing. So Mike Irvine had a big role in that, and he since has gone on to a much bigger opportunity as a internal communications producer for Boeing. His family's out of Missouri, so he was able to go to St. Louis and make that work. But thankfully, he was looking for some freelance work and is continuing to. So he was just at the Gap Grind doing a story off camera. Of course, he's writing for my voice from Gap Grind, and then he's going to be at PCC and Production Nationals. He's going to ghost produce that for me. So I'll be down there next week for Open and Limited, and then we'll turn around and come back, pack some clean clothes in the bag, turn around and go right back down there. I've got a spot to shoot PCC, and Irvine's going to take the crew and ghost produce. So I'm excited for that, man.
Hell yeah, dude. That'll be a good time.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So what year did you get into actually competing in practical shooting?
Yeah, so that was another angle that we sort of all looked at each other and were like, I think this is a good idea, because it put me in a position where I could say, hey, listen, we're going to show you the best in the country, the best in the world at any of these sports, but at the same time, understand that there's a whole other group of people that are also competing at these events at their skill level. And I don't take myself so seriously that I won't do it. I'm not going to, I decided it was time to start putting myself out there and start doing it. And that applies to all of the practical sports. And what really was the thing that made it happen was year after year with Smith & Wesson as our largest sponsor, we were always at the indoor nationals, the IDPA indoor nationals. That was a must do. And they would always put together squads of people from both Smith & Wesson and other sponsor companies to also come along and shoot the match. And they insisted that we do it as well. And so we did, 2 or 3 times, and we put that on the show. Jim actually would shoot it. I would shoot it. Mike would shoot it. But that was kind of that tipping point where it was like, okay, there's a reason to do this beyond just hanging out on the range with some of the big wigs from Smith & Wesson, which that very much was why we did it at first, presenting it to the audience and saying, hey, listen, you guys can do this too, and you can improve at your own pace. You become more proficient with firearms. You become more proficient in your understanding of the sport. It's a win-win. And so from there, I'm trying to remember the first time I shot a US PSA match. I'm pretty sure it was at USSA, the place in Tulsa.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was there. I know I shot my first all-steel Pro-Am there because we did a whole thing for that. So I want to say that was around 08, 09 when we first all jumped out and started doing that. The IDPA match was about in that same time frame, maybe a couple of years sooner. Funny thing about IDPA, prior to them allowing PCCs, which I think is fantastic, I would only shoot a revolver because I got penalized for dropping an empty magazine with a round in the chamber. Like I had counted and I was like, count. Gun is not at slide lock. That magazine is empty. I disregarded that magazine and I was penalized. And I was like, that's ridiculous.
It's empty.
You seriously cannot make a good case for why I need to retain that magazine because I kept a round in the chamber of my gun. I did not shoot my gun to slide lock, and now I have to save that empty magazine or avoid this penalty. That rule is flawed, and I won't use this. I won't use this platform in your sport because I still have to shoot your sport for the whole put on. From now on, I'm gonna shoot a 629, and there you go. So it's a. It's a fun game if you take it at face value.
Andy said straight to jail. Drop a magazine, straight to jail.
Right. You got it.
Yeah. Pew Pew Tank said they just changed that rule in June. Nice.
Good for them. Smart. Well played.
Good, because I shot one IDPA major.
Yeah.
And thought that everybody told me, man, don't drop a mag with a round in it. Don't drop a mag with a round in it.
Right.
Well, I did the same thing you did.
Right. Mag was empty. Like
Yeah.
there was no ammo in that mag. I get the whole tactical reload, retain a mag with ammo. I get that. That's fine. This magazine was empty. It's because the gun wasn't at slide lock. And
Yeah. At the
anyway.
first, at the first penalty, I was like, well, this is dumb.
Yep. So anyway, swap
Going
it over
back
to a
USPSA.
revolver. Have a good time with that. There's some rad pictures somewhere. Yamil Sued took some of the coolest pictures from the indoor nats, and I was shooting that 629, and it's this massive fireball out of it. Like I'm kneeled down next to this like mailbox, the old blue mailbox, and I mean just massive fireball. Super cool shot. But
revolvers are fun, man.
In the right environment.
In the right environment.
Right. The people who run USPSA stages with revolvers, God bless them, man. They're a different breed, man. That is not for me.
I attempted to shoot a local out here with a revolver. One of my buddies talked me into it because he's a revolver guy. He said, "Man, come out to my local. They're very revolver friendly." And I go out and I'm using his revolver set up my revolver, right?
Right.
Well, I show up and I walk the stages. It's all 32 round field courses.
Yep.
All of it. And I went, no.
Yep.
I went and grabbed my open gun out, put my open gun on.
Reload.
He's like, come on, dude. You're not going to shoot the revolver? Hell no.
It's tough. It's tough.
Oh, man. So basically, you travel the country talking about firearms, shooting sports, and outdoor stuff. Seems to be a dream job, but I'm sure there's got to be some frustrating points to the job. What are the frustrating points of the job?
Anybody who works in a family business will understand this, and I've got a unique connection to some other people, especially in our industry, who are family type companies, because you have multiple dynamics in play. I mean, I'm very thankful. We've been very blessed. We've put together a wonderful company. We're doing what we're doing and making a living at it. However, there is still that dynamic that is, it's not dad, it's Jim. And, that whole thing is there's always some challenges related to that. The interesting thing about our travel is traveling with equipment, traveling with television gear, the camera and all of that stuff. It makes it pretty limiting with regard to what airlines you're going to use. And we have found that Southwest Airlines is the best, most accommodating for us. They don't overcharge, they don't add fees, all of these other things. So thankfully, Nashville is one of Southwest's bigger hubs. You can go a lot of places direct out of Nashville because that's a big consideration. Like once you put all of our gear, and that's the same thing when it comes to guns too. If you're going to hand over a case of guns to the TSA, and then the TSA is going to say, okay, this is locked up, and then they're going to hand it off to the ground crew. You want that case, whether it's your TV equipment or your guns, your rifle, whatever, to hit the inside of a plane as few times as possible. Like if you're going to have to go somewhere, your best case scenario is go direct. Otherwise, it's going to come out of there and get thrown in a cart and get driven across the tarmac and get thrown in another plane and come out of there. And you basically double the impact on whatever it is you're packing. And it's one of those things. Like we've lost stuff. Guys will, whoever, I don't want to say guys, I don't know who it is, will open that big Pelican case that we travel with, and because it looks like something important is going to be in there, and whatever's on top, they're going to rifle through it. And we've lost, digital monitors and other stuff like that, stuff that people don't really even have an understanding of what they're getting. What am I actually stealing? You got the monitor because it looks like a little TV, so that's cool, but you didn't get the proprietary wire system that feeds it. You didn't get the proprietary batteries that run it. So basically you got something that's worthless after the fact, and now we're hamstrung. So that's always been one of the big challenges for us, is the travel side of the house. The fact
Southwest is the GOAT.
Yeah, for sure. The fact that we're centrally located, kind of middle Tennessee is centrally located, sort of southeast, but that also has access directly to the East Coast. we don't drive to Texas. We'll fly to Texas because you can go direct pretty much anywhere out of Nashville. We always have to fly to Vegas. We always have to fly if we're going to LA, something like that. But during COVID, we realized you can actually drive to Florida and not go crazy. So yeah, like you said, like Andy
get a
mystery machine like Brian did. That is one of the hardest working dudes. Like that dude is a straight road warrior.
He's actually about 30 minutes that way right now.
Yeah.
He hit me up. Hey, I'm coming in for Kalash Bash. Love to see you.
Right.
And we were supposed to go to dinner Friday night, and then he was like, "Dude, I'm swamped. I've got 50 people here. I can't leave." I'm like, "All good." Then we were supposed to go to dinner last night. He's like, 8 p.m. He's like, still here, still slinging glasses, and I'm like, dude, all good, bro. And then this morning, he's like, all right, I'm out of glasses. I'm gonna stay till 11, and then I'm gone. I was like, all right, bet.
The advent of, number one, his product, that HD Gold product, and the Ruby, but his lens technology is out of this world. I was at a charity shotgun shoot this past week, and one of the celebrities behind this charity thing is a guy named Tim Montana, he's super cool. If y'all haven't seen Tim Montana, it's worth looking him up. But his road manager is out of Atlanta, and I'm getting Tim lined up because we're going to do another interview. Hey, it's a great event and all of that. And the road manager comes out and he goes, "Dude, I love your show. I love shooting. I love your show. I've been shooting GSSF matches. I want to talk to you. I want to chat you up." And he was like, "What do you think? What should I do?" Because I was like, well, listen, you're in Atlanta. You're 90 minutes away from the CMP. That place has some of the best matches. There's tons of shooting around you. There's a huge club right there where you are. You need to go shoot. He's like, "I've been shooting GSSF." I was like, "Take everything you've learned in GSSF and go shoot a USPSA match. You're ready." And he's like, "Okay, what about Hunter's HD?" And I was like, hands down, the best shooting glasses there are. They are some of the best. And you'll put them on. And that's the thing that Brian has cultivated by going to all of these events with his setup, because once you can tell somebody how good they are, once you get somebody to put them on and wear them for an hour or 2 hours, now you can understand why they cost what they cost, and you will figure out, hey, I need these. These are that valuable. Man, I'm telling you, I absolutely love that product. I've got a set of the HD Gold lenses in those Dylan frames that I wear, and then I also have a set of the Ruby lenses in those frames. And remarkably enough, the Rubies are darker, but they're better for indoor conditions in my kind of limited experience. I like to wear the Rubies inside.
I love his stuff, man. I shoot a dot most of the time. So the red, if I can get away with it, depending on the lighting conditions, is just a game changer. And I have astigmatism, so the fact that he can do prescription lenses, and then also, I can't tell you how many matches I've been to with people on my squad where we're shooting in sun up or sundown, facing into the sun, and they're complaining about how they can't see their dot, they can't see the targets, blah, 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 blah. I always keep a couple pairs extra that are non-prescription to give out to people like that. And at least once every other match, somebody's complaining. I hand them that pair of glasses, and they're like, "I'm not going to switch mine." You just put them on. They put them on. I say, give it about 10 minutes before you go shoot. They come back and they go, "How much are these?" And I'm like, "Call Brian." And then they're like, "I would pay way more money than these cost for this advantage." I'm like, "I'm telling you, man, they're the shit."
What's remarkable is his ability to put that lens technology in whatever frame you already have. And he's like, I don't want to ask him how he does it, but his lab has the capability to precisely cut those lenses to whatever shape. And, there was a time when Oakley made their name on the curved lens. Like, you can't replicate the curve of our lens. It's that good. Dude, Brian can fit any Oakleys, whether they're frames or not. He can replicate an Oakley lens shape. It doesn't matter. And he can put the prescription in it. Yeah, plug HD Gold, man. They're awesome.
I run the Oakley Flak 2.0s. And they have kind of a weird cut lens. And I run both in the rubies and in the golds. I run those. And he always sends the old lens back. And if you put them right up to each other, they're fucking identical.
Yeah, they're dead
and the
on,
prescription. It's amazing.
Well, so you got to support independent eye companies. Like he says, man, is support independent lenses, because Yeah, I am 100% sure that at some point, one of those big Bausch and Lomb or whoever owns all of those brands is going to come looking for him to make him very rich and buy his technology, but not yet.
I'm expecting it sooner than later because he is locking down the shooting sports and outdoors world, and he's such a good guy. You know,
Yeah, super
he's
cool
so
dude.
lovable.
Yep.
Yeah,
Did you know that the mystery machine is actually a designated safe area if you're at a USPSA national or USPSA event? You can bring your firearm into the mystery machine and it is treated as a safe area. You can do repairs. He has batteries. He has fiber optic pieces if you lose a fiber out of your front sight, whatever. He has stuff to fix your gun. So one more plug for Brian. I got to knock it off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's gonna get all bashful. I'm gonna get a text later.
Right.
But so, all right. So you start shooting in again around that kind of mid 2000s range. How many matches do you get to shoot that y'all are covering? Because I know that's got to be tough. If you're there covering the match, is it harder for you to be able to shoot it?
Yes. And that's one of those things because people ask all the time when I turn up at a match, hey, are you working? Or, hey, did you get to shoot? Or is it just work or both or whatever? I've done it every way you can slice it, up to and including shooting with the staff and then switching gears and going into the producer hat. One way or another, it is a demand that impacts either the shooting or the producing of the show. So I've found myself in a position where I won't try to commingle the two. I either will shoot and put my focus at that. Even though I'm club level, I still want my full focus on that. Or if that's not going to be possible, there isn't somebody else who can produce for me. Like in the case of PCC and production, I've got Irvine coming. I'll just say, hey, listen, I won't be able to shoot this time. Shooting with the staff, I've done it a number of different times. I shot with staff at Single Stack this year because I then went on to RO one of the stages with the Huspecs and the guy Dave. That was a whole different proposition in its own right, just from the physical aspect that I don't think I was prepared to understand. It's difficult. It's already difficult to shoot an entire national with the staff in that, in the case of the Single Stack, it was like the whole match in a day. And then you start off on the back foot because now you're super tired and beat up physically from shooting all day. And the next morning you got to be on the range and stay there all day working as an RO. And that's multiple days. So there's a lot of different challenges to it. The one that really kind of opened my eyes to this whole thing of, if you're going to shoot, come here and shoot. If you're going to produce for your show, come here and produce for your show. That was when I started dipping my toe into the PRS and shooting the long range stuff. There's just simply no way to stay switched on for the long range game and stay focused in what you're doing and then still be giving good direction to the crew. It's not fair to the crew for me to just be like, all right, you guys figure it out. I'll get with you in 2 hours or whatever. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to the finished product, because at the end of the day, if they don't have guidance, they don't know where the story's going, they don't know what I'm going to write, there's no way for them to decide what I'm going to write. And then it's just a big mess. So it didn't take long to figure that one out. That was like, hey, look, either do one or the other. I'm thankful to have had so many opportunities to do both, but it has to be a focus one way or the other.
I haven't been able to do a lot of the PRS stuff, but man, is it fun.
Here's the best thing about it. There's no reset.
Exactly.
You never reset anything. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's a sport for GMs right there.
Yeah. Wow. Funny you say that. I worked as an RO at the Single Stack Nationals this year, or the Classic Nationals.
Yeah, the low cap. Yeah, I saw you there. I remember when I walked up to the stage you were working, I was like,
yeah,
are you not filming today?
Well, I had a crew there, but I had a producer. I had a guy with Anthony that was, creating his version of the story and so on. But the two super squads that came through, those guys actually hopped to it and, didn't really need a lot of prodding. There were really only a couple of squads where we kind of had to remind them, hey, listen, we need help repairing. We need help getting this stage, back so we can get through. It was it was pretty remarkable. I mean, at least that particular match, it wasn't a lot of that resetting thing.
It's extremely rare that the Super Squad guys don't reset vigorously,
Right.
except for Blake Maguez. But he'll tell you he doesn't reset.
I mean, it's one thing, I guess. If you look at it from this perspective, there are some of those elite level dudes, like Christian, for instance. But Christian's mom or his dad is always resetting. Always. And is that an advantage? Is you bring somebody to reset in your place? I mean, draw your own conclusion. At the end of the day, the work's getting done on his behalf by somebody who's there on his behalf. I mean, I call it good. In the international version of the game, as you guys know, and I'm sure the audience knows, in other countries, IPSC, in some countries, this is the ultra elite, like only the very wealthy. And so those people will actually hire people to do resetting. The match, in some instances, will hire people to do resetting. They've done that a few times. Frank had done that a few times down at Universal, where they bring in like the Police Explorers group and stuff like that. And they kind of nonprofit the thing. They make a little money, or they make a donation to the group or whatever, and that group resets the stage. They've done that a number of times. So it's interesting how it's different in other countries and in other cultures, if you will, other shooting cultures.
I've shot in the last couple of years a good amount of staff reset or paid reset matches. Mm-hmm. It's a different experience.
Yep.
You don't realize how fresh you stay throughout the whole day.
Yes, it is a tremendous, I mean, there's a physical aspect to that. And, some of the argument is, well, this is a physical sport. That's a piece of it. You're supposed to be able to endure that and endure the shooting. I mean, it's a part of what you're signed on for, but I mean, there's a lot of different ways to slice that. You know what I mean?
Listen, Dale Earnhardt Jr. doesn't change his own oil. All right.
That's right. Wow. If we had Dale Earnhardt Jr. money in this game, nobody'd be resetting.
Nobody.
There would be no such thing as reset. There'd be self-scoring, self-healing targets. You know what I mean? Sky's the limit when you start throwing NASCAR money at it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wish. I just wish we had a multi-billionaire that got into this sport, that just decided, you know what, let's pour some money into this, because there's some ideas that would make the sport just so much better and bigger, but it takes money, man, and money is hard to come by in this industry, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. There's only a finite amount of promotional dollars, and we're doing as good a job as we can to leverage and keep going under our very lean mom and pops kind of operation that we're rocking. But like anyone, if you can tap out of industry funding in one way or another, that's the gold mine. And it's really hard to do in this unfortunate political environment. It's just really hard to do.
That's extremely difficult, man. I've reached out to some non-shooting sports industry sponsors to try to get them to partner in this brand and other brands in shooting sports. And it's like pulling teeth.
Yep.
It's like pulling teeth. I mean, I'm still starting to get some success with some outside brands, but it's very minimal and it's very limited. And it's not like it was, in the 90s and early 2000s. The stories I hear from there, shooting sports had crazy sponsorship. I mean, you would know more than I would, obviously. I got into this in 2018. So what were some of the sponsors back then that just, you wouldn't believe it now?
If you look back into the 90s, and you look back to when, the great outdoor games were still on ESPN, you had Jeep, you had Dodge, the massive, you had Budweiser. We did I don't remember the year, but it was still under the banner of American Shooter. So it was the other company, but we were at PASA, and Jeep was a sponsor to the extent that the production company brought in a switching truck that had been switching a college football game. So they, full 18-wheeler with hardwired cameras and real time. They did live to tape, real time switching for it was I forgot what the event was, but anyway, Jerry Barnhart won it, and they threw Jerry Barnhart in the pond and the whole bit on camera. It was like this big do, and it ended up unfortunately being a loser for the production company because of some unpaid sponsorship money or some promised sponsorship money versus money that was laid out for that production truck and different things like that. But, it was just, as you start to move a little bit into that outdoor space, there's big name companies that will be involved in the outdoor space, like the steel timber sports, right? So steel chainsaws, timber sports, that's outdoors. As soon as you start to add in, you start to kind of tiptoe towards like the shotgun sports, you can still find some sponsorships in that. But once you transition over to what we all consider practical, then they all go, no way.
That's dead.
It's not for us. We were, and I talked about this on Brian's podcast, on the Behind the Lens podcast. We were literally at the negotiation table with a proposal for a major pizza brand. The owner, the guy, it's a family company. The guy is like, yep, I love it. I'm into it. I love the show. He and Jim are buddies and all of this. We're going to do it. And his attorneys are like, you cannot do this. You must not do this.
God damn it, Papa John.
And that I'm not going to say the brand, but not that dude. So,
I know, that would have been cool though, right? If
it would have been
wild,
wild
on the head, it would have been a hell of a guess.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things. It's like, as loyal and as much as our community will vote with their dollars, if you will, the other side of the fence is just as vehement, and they're like, yep, we still need to sell pizza to everybody. And
so what do you think the fix is for that? What do you think the fix is to be able to reach that?
Education. Yeah. I mean, just an understanding of why this is a viable sport versus, the idea that we're all out here practicing to commit mass murder, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd. So
do you think we need to get away from the humanoid target? Go more towards the M65 target?
I've said that a number of times. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's been one of those things. And
because that was the stop between a conversation I had with another potential investor into the sport. Is I met with a pretty large and fairly new energy drink company.
Right.
Hey, like y'all would bring a lot into this, and their response was, "Hey, after reviewing all the video stuff you sent us, because I took tens of hours of video and cut it down to like a 7-minute promo to send them." And they said, we're a fan of it with the exception of shooting a humanoid target.
Right.
That is a no-go for us. Our lawyers said, get out now.
Sure. To that extent, I'm working with specific pro tips instructors who want to describe a shooting drill, and it's going to be a Mozambique style. And it's, let me get 2 to the body and 1 to the head. And I'm like, how about we do 2 to the center mass, 1 to the upper scoring area? How about that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Let's change our nomenclature a little bit. The problem is if you go to the root fundamentals, the beginning of practical shooting with with Colonel Cooper, that's what it was. It was, how can you effectively stop a threat? It was never designed to be a sport like a tennis. It was never designed to be that. So how do we move from there how do we move it from there to where we want it to go without losing the essence of what it really is? And I think the key element, the first piece of that puzzle, is the target. I mean, you look at the international version of the target. Look at the IPSC target. Okay, that's one example. But look at the NRA D1 target, the target that they shoot in PPC competition or in Bianchi Cup. It's the tombstone. Everybody knows that, but it can be a test for accuracy. You can do an accuracy tested target that has an upper scoring zone, but call it an upper scoring zone. Don't call it a head. It's simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So, anyway. I think that would help, but also I think it's getting easier and easier over the last year, at least in my opinion. Maybe the last 2 years. When I first got into the game, the political climate was super negative for shooting sports, but I feel like it's starting to loosen up, and I think we have the current climate to thank for that, because everybody's starting to realize how important firearms are and how important firearm safety and the right to have them is. I think it's starting to loosen up a little bit, because it's getting easier and easier to do stuff like this, where we're on one of the least firearms friendly platforms, and we're having this discussion without getting schwacked off the air, you know?
Yeah, I mean yeah, I agree. But make no mistake, if the current administration has their way, nobody will have guns. Nobody will have
100%.
ammunition. You know, I mean, that was one of the things originally, which was like, you know, if we can't get the guns out of their hands, we'll make sure they don't have any bullets to shoot. You know what I mean? That was years ago.
Yeah. I
But
100% agree.
I can speak from experience. Companies like Hornady are making more ammunition now and are reinvesting into the production of ammunition at a greater rate now than ever in history. I was allowed and fortunate to have a tour of massive expansion in Grand Island, Nebraska. So much so that, you know, I'm like, hey, listen, can I show this? Like, can I bring cameras in here to show the people? And they're like, we really can't do that, but we want you to see it so you can tell the people. And I mean, they're making more ammo now than they ever have in the history of that company. And that's not only to fill demand, but that's also to continue to fill demand, the demand in the future.
Nobody sells guns and ammunition better than a blue president.
For sure. For sure. And, you know, we've lived through a number of different administrations as our company, dependent on the industry to advertise. You know, I mean, we have to have brand partners like Smith & Wesson or Colt or Hornady or Palmetto. You know, I mean, we have to have these companies. Otherwise, you know, we don't have a way to pay the bills. We don't have a way to buy the airtime. We don't have a way to pay to pay the mortgage, to pay everybody's salary. And we've been very thankful, even in an environment where it's a 6 or an 8 month back order to get a rifle from any of these companies, that they're still like, okay, we realize that this is a bubble and we're going to stick with you because there will be a time when we need advertising push again. So, you know, it's one of those things. We're very fortunate.
I've always said that if somebody could make a streaming platform that would be dedicated to shooting sports and put the time and energy and money into it, that it would bring shooting sports back into the forefront, how it was in the 90s and 2000s, when it was readily available, when you could turn on ESPN on a Saturday and be like, oh, what's this? Oh, that's cool. And then they watch it, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. ESPN, when American Shooter first started, it was on ESPN, and in that first year, ESPN was bought by Disney, and the Disney Corporation was like, okay, you can still be on this channel, but there will be no advertising of guns, no advertising of firearms. And back in those days, Colt was the number one sponsor of American Shooter. And back in those days, there was no internet. So the drive to action for Colt was get people to call the 1-800 number, give us their address so we can send them our catalog, right? That was the whole thing. And in their commercial first break of American Shooter, it was call now to get the new Colt catalog and this and that. And the way we worked our way around the rules of Disney/ESPN was Colt separated their apparel and accessories catalog from the firearms catalog. So you would see that commercial and the firearms catalog would be under the apparel and accessories catalog, slightly turned. So you could just see a little bit, and you call now and get the whole family of Colt catalogs for accessories and apparel and other Colt items. That was the way to work around it then. The way to work around it now, we're leveraging our YouTube presence. YouTube is a place where we land not all of our content, but we land segments of our content with the idea that, hey, I get it. There's a huge portion of this audience that just wants to watch YouTube for free. But if you don't want to stream on a Hulu, you don't want to stream on MOTV, you want to stream just Shooting USA, you're interested in just Shooting USA, follow the link in this video's description to our Vimeo channel. It's $1.99 a month, and you can watch 3 days worth of full-length Shooting USA shows. The way to expand outside of that, and I think two things. One, the algorithm on YouTube will like, I mean, shadow ban is one of these kind of slang jargony
Yeah.
terms or whatever. That's a real thing.
It'll get you.
The algorithm will suppress your content. But we have some of those breakout uploads on YouTube, like the Cowboy Fast Draw World Championship that goes absolutely ridiculously
Bananas.
viral. Like, dude, I'm telling you, it's stupid. This one upload is up north of 2 million views at this point, and like over a given weekend, it might get 200,000 or 300,000 views. That's peanuts compared to some of the like automotive titles that I look at on YouTube, or guys like, I mean, you can't really compare Mr. Beast because that's not fair. But if you talk
Yeah,
about
but like
guys like,
Full Throttle TV or
right,
Throttle
wow,
House or those guys, like the Throttle House guys are a good example.
right,
They're just two dudes reviewing cars,
right.
but because it's cars,
Right. Mega millions of views.
oh,
Those, and that algorithm piece denotes advertising dollars, whether they allow YouTube to place advertising, which we're not doing, or they, I got our channel on YouTube. I took it from when I started paying attention to it, it was at like 78,000 and it was stalled. It wouldn't grow. And paid attention to what my stepbrother was doing with his automotive channel, growing it super fast, and took some tips from him, did a couple of other things, and got the channel to where it is now. We're north of 119,000, probably 120,000 after this weekend. So
that's huge.
I got us that silver play button. That was a big deal, getting them to acknowledge the fact that I'm not selling guns. I'm showing off fun stuff with guns, but I'm not selling. But the key element was once you surpass that 100,000 mark, then they look back to you and say, do you want to monetize? Do you want to start allowing YouTube monetization? And Jim's like, well, should we do that? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, why not? And I said, because we won't be able to control who they plug in. You won't be able to control who, the algorithm is going to decide whoever it is, and they're going to slap whatever that advertisement is. Now, granted, it's going to be targeted towards who they think our audience is. But if we can't control that, we run the risk of running afoul of the companies who are our advertising partners. So we're not going to take that money from them.
It's a crapshoot with advertisement.
It really is. And on the other hand, it also puts us in a position where if they find a copyright claim, which they do from time to time, even though we have full music licensing for everything we put out there, like we're up to date on our music licensing, they'll copyright claim 1 out of 5 videos because of music. And it's like, all right, I'm going to run this down. I'm going to prove to you that I have the license to use this music. And at what point is that a diminishing return? There's no reason for me to go and prove this claim, YouTube. I'm not monetizing with you. I don't need to spend 5 hours of my time chasing this down for no reason. Like I fell into that trap once. At this point, I'm like, forget it. But the YouTube audience is an interesting kind of a cross section. Some of them, maybe 0.5, maybe 0.4% are actually migrating to the Vimeo to watch the full length shows. The rest of them are just like, I'll stay here and watch for free, or, oh, cool, I'll click on and go watch something that Demolition Ranch is doing or something that Hickok 45 is doing or whatever. And that's fine. That's cool. As long as I'm getting eyeballs, that's what matters. So,
yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy, but I think it's, like I said, I think it's starting to get easier. And I think it's just going to take someone going, okay, I'm going to invest some time and money into something like that to make the shooting sports just a full steam ahead, monetized, streamable sport.
What's been an interesting conversation that has been had over the course of this past year a couple of different times is, what does it look like to try to do a live shooting sports event that represented something on a pay-per-view basis? Like if you can get, for instance, you can get people to buy a pay-per-view for pillow fighting, or you can get people to buy a pay-per-view for something silly like that. Can you get people to buy a pay-per-view for a shooting sport of whatever description? And we've explored it. I've looked at, I've been approached and talked to people who want to kind of promote something like that, people who have inroads and things like that. And ultimately it comes down to who's going to pay for it. What's it going to cost? Well, I've done the math and I've done the research piece on what is it going to take to put another production truck on the ground so that we can switch live to tape and do essentially what Three Gun Nation was doing back when they were going live to stream, but do it in such a way that it has a level of production that I'm comfortable putting the Shooting USA brand on. You know what I mean? It looks like something that I feel good about saying, this is a product that I would say is worth $10 if you were gonna stream it. The problem is to get to that point, it's a 6-figure investment, and it's not an investment, it's a gamble. And our little company can't afford that gamble. So how do we make that work? It's an interesting kind of a cross section that USPSA is continuing to try to refine with their investment and reinvestment in their live streaming version of the Nationals, what they've evolved into, starting with a few cameras on a few stages that are basically lock-offs that you can sign on Facebook and watch, and moving that forward into something that has not necessarily a live kind of a play-by-play, but has more of a scoring update, has pre-produced sections that you would go to help kind of bridge the gap between 30 seconds of shooting action and then 5 minutes of stage reset. So I don't have the answer to that question. At the end of the day, it's, well, that sounds like a great idea. What's your budget? You know what I mean? And that's unfortunately what it always comes back to is how much money do we have to spend on this? Who's putting the money up? So
Yeah.
I like that idea. Miking up the super squad has always been a good one. And we've done those mic'd up segments before. I did one with Casey, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. I've done it with Max before. I've done it with Rob Latham before. I did it with Rob Latham, one of the last events we had at Desert Sportsman when we were all still going to Vegas for nationals and staying at the Orleans, man, back in those good old days. Those are always fun. It's, if you were to mic the entire squad, you have to select individuals that are open to that idea, because I found out pretty quick, once you mic one guy, other guys realize it, and all of a sudden they're either talking to him a lot or they're not talking to him at all. And mic up Castro.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't mic up Castro.
But yeah, there's a lot of ways to leverage the prosumer technology. I mean, that's one of the things that I find most remarkable about what we're able to accomplish now with the gear that we're using now. Obviously, the primary cameras, the interview cameras, are professional level cameras that have the audio switch capability and all of that. But the rig that I usually am chasing shooters down with is a DJI action camera on a gimbal with an external power supply to make sure it all stays on, and an iPhone to view it on. And then, a second camera on a high shot that's basically the safety, the cutaway.
Yeah, I got with one of my buddies who's on the production side. He does production for business meetings for major oil and gas companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So coast to coast, everybody in the U.S. meets in Dallas, and then all the people overseas stream in and stream it, and they do all that coverage and everything. And he was saying that to do something like a USPSA Nationals effectively,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be between 175 and 275,000 for the
Mm-hmm.
initial investment for all the equipment.
I think that's right.
All the switch trucks and the switch truck and all that.
Yep.
And then he was saying that an event to event budget would be between 25 and 40,000.
I agree.
For staff and editing and everything else. So if you think about how you would recoup that investment if you were to put it behind a paywall, right?
Right.
So say you do 4 events your first year, at $35,000 an event plus the $250,000 initial investment.
Mm-hmm.
If you put it up for the event for $10 behind a paywall, you need 39,000 people watching it
To break even.
right?
Nobody made any money. We all just did it for the
yeah,
love at
yeah,
that point.
for the first
Yeah.
year. Now, obviously, the next year, the 250,000 you're not having to spend again, but there will be other things. But there's gotta be at least, I would think, 20 to 30,000 shooters across the entire world that would want to watch the Super Squad compete in the U.S. Nationals. I mean, if you think about how big IPSC is,
I know,
worldwide.
And that, honestly, when I started our Vimeo channel and I was like, hey, I'm going to set this up and I'm going to make it $2 a month, 50 cents a week to subscribe. You can watch everything that Shooting USA has put out for the last 3 years for $2 a month. Dude, wait till I tap into the Philippines. Wait till I tap into the Europeans. Wait till I mention Eric Raffel and I get the French behind this thing. Wait till that happens. We'll get thousands. It ain't there. It's not there. I mean, proof of concept, it's not there. The pay-per-view model that I was exploring, one of the biggest production truck companies is a local guy here, and he keeps offices not only in Nashville. He came out of also one of the TNN offshoots, but he came out of those back in those days. He has trucks all over the country, and they do live sporting events. They do concerts. Obviously, that's big bread and butter around here. He keeps trucks and has offices in Vegas, LA, New York, and Nashville. And I got on the phone with this dude, dropping my name, right, and got a phone call with this guy and was like, oh, I know your dad. I remember your dad from this. I was like, that's great. Can I have 20 minutes to talk through what I want to do? He has at his disposal a thing called a fly pack. It's not even a truck. It basically comes in a trailer, and it's enough gear to set up and go to a live stream and all of that. But it is still with his crew that has to come and set it all up. By the day, you're still looking at 50 to 75,000 per day. So to make it work, it's a day plus to set it up on the ground. For instance, if we were going to set it up at the Nationals and we were going to go live, you're in that 200K for the event. So at $10 a view, let's say it's $10 for the weekend, right? You know, this Nationals is going to be live streamed, and it's full blown coverage of every stage with the Super Squad, with live updates, with post, immediately following their reaction interviews. You got live updates of scoring. It basically looks like a Shooting USA show that streams all day long, not just, 3 segments, 15 minutes. It's the whole thing. And tireless effort. Again, you need at least
20,000 people to break even.
20,000 people just to be breaking even. You haven't even paid for anybody's. You really only paid for the crew at that point. Nobody's making money. There's no reinvestment.
But then does that bring on advertising that could recoup and
right? So
bring
here
a
we
positive
are,
outlook?
swimming in the same pond of advertising dollars that we're all already swimming in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you believe that any of these companies are holding back an extra $500,000 in advertising, you're crazy. They're not. They are not. Maybe SIG is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Experience Center? It's very impressive.
Shit, have you been to their SHOT Show booth? That's a $700,000 SHOT Show booth.
You should see the Experience Center. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you could get some of the goofy YouTube guys involved.
Well, okay, so here's to that end.
You got.
I know by now y'all have heard about the Prairie Life rank thing that's happening at the end of this month. They're going to do $100,000 to one of 300 people who qualifies on this, essentially on a bullseye target. I've agreed to show up and cover it because that is a story, man. $100,000 to one person. We're going to take 300 entries down to 150 in the first event. Then we're going to cut 150 to 75 in the second event, 75 down to 30. And then the final is going to be man v man or man v woman, whoever ends up in that final. They've got some names, man. They're putting it out through social media. They're pushing it out right now. Like Jerry's going, Julie's going. Who knows who's going to take that dollar figure away. What'll be interesting
Probably
is
Jerry Mikulich.
Probably, or, it's one of those things. You got to get out of that first round. So you got to get out of the second round. And the first round is, draw and shoot the bullseye target. The second round is draw and shoot the bullseye target around a barricade. So I know Bruce Pyatt's been practicing. I mean, why wouldn't he? He's one of those guys that shows up for a 6-figure paycheck. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I'm also interested to see where they're going to get the money that they're saying they're going to give away for this event next year, right? They're talking about in 2023, this event will pay $1 million. Now, if that's the case, and there is that kind of money, I want a meeting with whoever's pulling that figure together. Where are they going to generate that? Because is it going to be $10 a head to try to qualify for this thing at your local club, or how are we going to do that? Because no company that's going to stay in business is going to give away $1 million unless they're making 5 or 10. You know what I mean? So anyway, interesting times right now. That is a new concept. I'm excited to see it. It's unfortunate that it has to happen back to back with the Nationals, and then right after that I've got the PRS finale, so I got 4 weeks of straight weekend travel coming up. But I mean, you know, rake the hay when the sun is up. Don't cry about having a job, buddy.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that thing's interesting. I'm probably gonna make an appearance. Why wouldn't you? 100
Yeah,
grand?
you got to. Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, they hit me up for it and were like, "Are you interested?" Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
$100,000? Absolutely, I'm interested.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
the
gonna be
bragging rights alone.
right. Well, for me, it's a good story, and it's all over in a day. You know what I mean? We get out there and get on that range at 7:30 in the morning, and 300 people are going to get cut to 150. That's a big progression that happens all like before lunch.
Yeah,
And then
I'm trying to see if they'll let me use my open gun.
I'm pretty sure you can use any gun you want.
I think you
there's
can.
I don't think there's a limitation on whatever gun. It's as long as it's a handgun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can. It's going to be interesting.
Right. That'd be awesome.
Oh man, but yeah, I mean, it's such a weird crossroads we're at, right? Because we're trying to make it bigger. We're trying to grow the shooting sports, but we're also running into roadblocks like this, like advertising and political climate and everything else. And then you see cornhole on ESPN, and
Well, there you go. So Johnsonville Brats
makes you want to
sponsors
makes you want to punch somebody.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're into, you know, the grilling the grilling industry. Who knows how much grill meat? You know, what is Johnsonville's regular advertising budget? Well, it's pretty freaking stout, because they advertise. Not only do they title sponsor that show, but they also advertise during huge sporting events. I mean, I haven't seen one lately, but I know when a company like that has a brand recognition piece like that, their ad spend is well into the 7 figures, maybe more. Whereas any of the companies we're dealing with, their ad spend is nothing like that. I think a couple of years ago, there was I want to say it was Glock that did a mainstream commercial and bought time during, maybe it was the Super Bowl, maybe it was something else. And then it ended up being a commercial where you never really got an understanding of who it was. Like, what company actually is this? They had watered it down to an extent that you really didn't get an understanding of who had actually paid that mega fortune to have that advertisement piece. It was not an effective advertisement, in my opinion. But that is literally the brass ring for all of us in any of the shooting sports, is that out of industry, tapping that out of industry trust, finding a company that's willing to take the risk and be involved.
I think if you changed the humanoid target aspect of it and then framed it more as a sport instead of a practical shooting application, and found a way to stream it and make it monetized, I think it would be way easier to go after companies like, you know, Celsius and Under Armour and different companies like that. I mean, Under Armour sets up at SHOT Show.
Yeah, Under Armour's got a massive hunting presence, massive fishing presence.
Think about all the hunting and shooting. I mean, just about every shooter I know also hunts or fishes in some aspect, or is an outdoorsman. Right. So why wouldn't we be able to tap into the hunting and fishing game? The problem is they don't want to be invested in something that is a practical shooting humanoid target company. I think the advertisement dollars are already there. I just think they're not currently available because of how the sport is currently framed. And that was an argument I had with a couple of the ADs the other day. And I think once we were done, they were like, well, shit, maybe there is dollars on the table that we're not touching.
It's possible. Again, it's the dichotomy piece, the how far away from the root of the sport that we all love do we take this to make it more palatable for a mainstream? Do we water it down? Do we change it in such a way? And where, that's kind of a slippery slope to a certain extent. I think the one point that was made earlier in the comments is one that people have scratched their head over for years, and that is, how do you see real-time scoring? How do you know, without having to, in post-production, explain who hit what on what target and why that was good or bad? That's the key element in real time. There are a couple of Instagram accounts that I follow that the guy, whoever the one guy is, he's filming stuff with his 360i view on his hat brim, and then in post-production he's putting up like a AA or a AC, and that all pops up off of the targets, like he's doing that in post, and that is ultra valuable. I just noticed the other day, I was watching that JJ put up a video like that had the actual scoring bubble kind of pop up over each target. If there was a way, and again, we're talking an investment in the target technology, if there was a way for the targets to react instantly, so if you've got two in the alpha, or you've got an alpha and a Charlie, or a Charlie and a Delta, or whatever, the target lights up when it's hit, something like that. Again, these targets become expensive. They're no longer a perforated piece of cardboard that costs 40 cents. They're several $100s, maybe thousands of dollars each. The best answer using current technology that I have to that, from a viewer's standpoint, how do you know whether you're educated in this or not, if somebody's doing well versus somebody who isn't doing well, is reactive steel. So the steel Pro-Am, all steel stage and all steel Corsafire, where once all the steel is down, it's good. That has worked well in the past. Does it fit the model of the USPSA? No, it doesn't. It's not. That's not what USPSA is. However, in the last several nationals, there have been all steel stages. So some of it is there. A piece of it is there. I think we're in a kind of a crossing over.
I think there are self-scoring targets. I know that's a thing, and there are some that are that they use for the air rifle stuff.
Yep. They're very, very expensive. Just like the high power targets at the CMP and at Camp Perry, and the high power rifle targets that centralize, they have the microphones and they centralize where the hits are on the screen. So how do you take that, or can you take that technology and adapt it to a multi-target course of fire?
There's got to be a way to retrofit it, but it's not going to be affordable.
Right. No, that's the key element. It's not
going to be affordable, and it's going to take a serious investment on USPSA's part. And you're only going to be able to have those available for live streamed events. You can't use them for anything else. It wouldn't make sense.
Well, the other thing is, what does it look like if just the A zone has a shoot and see element to it? You know what I mean? Like
I've thought about that. I've thought about taking a target, right? Taking a target, and you just get those little, those targets where it's like the stick-ons, and you shoot it and it has a little thing. I've thought about taking literally where you have just these sleeves, or the stickers, and after every shooter, you peel the old one off and you put a new one on, and that's how you tape the target.
Yep.
And then you have a reactive, visibly viewable way to do it for the live streams.
They're more expensive, but one of the keys to success that I've figured out after putting our sport on television as many times as we have is, if you can see the shooter's gun, and see the target in one shot, you've got it. The next best thing is see the shooter and their gun and have another camera that is full frame target. The problem is it all happens so fast that it's basically impossible to do the latter. The one prior is pretty manageable as long as you have a wide enough angle. The trick is having something you can visually see on that target. And we may be talking about something that wouldn't amortize its value, meaning you wouldn't really even be able to see that even if it lit up blaze orange when you hit the middle of the A zone. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's challenging.
The other caveat would be, having it to where you have multiple scoring ROs and you have to score the entire stage in less than 10, 20 seconds after the shooter's finished. And then those results pop up on screen.
Right.
Right.
So,
that would be acceptable. But then you could also maybe, they have those not the helmet, the cams. Most every
wearable
shooter wears a
camera.
hat, right?
Sure.
For the super squad especially, man, you just click that son of a gun on there and it's live streaming to the switch truck, and they can piece that into it as well. I mean, it's
the element would be, again, we're talking about, could this be viable to make something that's watchable for the enthusiast who understands the sport on a live stream, a wearable camera technology that sees the timer in real time and then cuts to whatever angle sees the action as it's happening, but the angle or the wearable camera technology that the timing RO is wearing is seeing the timer. So you're able to see timing. You can actually see splits. You've inset that in the bottom of the screen. At the end of the run, unload, show clear, if clear, hammer down, holster, and you begin scoring again from the wearable camera technology with the RO. So you're in real time hearing the scoring, and in real time, somebody is inputting that just as they're inputting it in the iPad. The iPad is sourced, and that's all appearing on the screen, and you get real-time results. That's as close to manageable within, I think, the technology that already exists and maybe a few add-ons.
Yeah, because they have those commander timers now that can relay
that
the
sync
time.
Yes.
Yeah, they sync.
Yes. So we've used that to a decent level of success in Steel Challenge. The manageable piece of Steel Challenge is the fact that, except for on outer limits, the RO and the shooter don't go anywhere. They stand in a box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's the limiting piece, is once that timer and that RO and that shooter start moving as far as 10 or 15 yards around a long course, now all bets are off whether or not you still have connectivity, whether or not you still have the streaming capability, and so on. So there's ways to do it. I think is the return on that investment going to make that investment / gamble viable? And that's sort of where we're all just looking at each other like, hey, how do we do it? How do we do it? So
I'm telling you, man, we recruit a few billionaires.
Wow, there you go. Or
listen, if anybody knows
that Powerball, somebody hit the Powerball.
Dude, I know. I said this the other day when the Texas Powerball was at like $1 billion, or the U.S. one was at like $1 billion.
Yeah.
I told my wife we bought a shit ton of tickets because we only do it whenever it's super high, right?
Right.
And she said, "What's the first thing we're gonna do?" And I'm like, "I know what the first thing I'm gonna do is."
Lambo.
She said, "What?" I said, "I'm gonna take $100 million and I'm buying USPSA, buying a streaming platform, and just gonna sink that money and lose it all, but change the game." And she was like, "That seems like a stupid investment." I was like, "We have $900 million left over. It won't be that big of a deal."
Yeah. I think 10 million could probably do it. We're just spending money we don't have, but
yeah.
I know it's an interesting time. What's exciting for me is continuing to see guys like you leverage the technology that's available and the amount of content that is available for people, even if they've never been to a match at all. And that's the key element, is just getting more people involved. I mean, that's the good works that we all need to do.
And that's the beauty of Shooting USA, man, is it's constantly just keeping the relevancy in shooting sports and firearms education and outdoors involvement going. And y'all are the only ones doing it. Especially y'all are the only ones on TV doing it. I mean,
wow, yeah. I appreciate that. I mean, that's a tremendous compliment. And that honestly is what we're trying to do, is your discipline, your competitive shooting discipline of whatever description. We want to showcase that. We want to talk about what it takes to do it. And we want to give as much as we can instruction using the professionals from your particular sport. And that equates to more people enjoying our Second Amendment rights. That equates to more people buying guns, buying ammo, buying support equipment, and more people getting involved at the club level. I mean, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome, man. I love what you guys are doing over there. I mean, it's
Right
incredible.
on.
Every time I see you at a match, I come up say hi because I'm excited
Yeah.
to see you guys there. All the big camera equipment, it's exciting. It makes it feel real, you know.
Well, and that's one of those things. The number one most validating piece that I get for my work is, hey man, I'm here at this match because I saw it on your show. Hey man, I'm here at this match because I saw you do it last year. That that is as great a compliment as any, man. I appreciate it. So
Hell yeah. Well, we're gonna answer a couple quick questions before we wrap this up. I know it's Sunday, you got the family and everything. So somebody actually just popped up a good question before we get to the others. Who or what is your most memorable show/segment you've ever hosted?
yeah, so this is an interesting one. I was just like I said earlier, I was at a charity shotgun event, and in the course of that, I was shooting with a team, and one of the guys on the team was like, I used to love watching Bob Munden. Bob Munden, he used to be on your show, right? I was like, yeah, man, Bob Munden, rest his soul. He was one of a kind, and there's a guy who literally crossed over into the mainstream with a full-on Colt single action. He was on that show. That's incredible. Back in like 1982, 83. I used to watch that show when I was a kid, long before Jim ever got involved in the shooting sports and all of that, like years and years ago. Bob Munden. So the last taping that we did with Bob Munden, he had diabetes. He had a terrible bout with diabetes at the end of his life, and his feet were so swollen that he could literally only stand for 15 or 20 seconds at a time. And he was riding around on a rascal scooter, and we're on his range, and he had done the $50 and shooting the $50 out of the air. He'd already done that, and he hit 3 of them, and we found one of them, which is now framed in the hallway outside Jim's office with a letter from Bob, and picture, the coin itself with the big dent in it is framed and all that. But the shot that he wanted was, he wanted to spin a quarter on a table. He wanted to spin a quarter with his 1911. And so we had it all rigged up, the quarter and the little safety pin that was opened up to hold it, like you would spin a quarter across the
Yeah,
table, you
yeah.
flick it with your finger. Well, he wanted to do it with his 1911. And he couldn't stand on his feet for more than 10 or 15 seconds. His feet hurt so bad. So we'd set it up and roll all the cameras. And he'd stand up and he'd aim that 1911 and bang, and just the slightest hair too much coin, and the coin's pew, it's gone, dude. It's gone across the field. Or just the slightest hair off of it, not enough, and nothing. And he's got to sit back down for a few minutes. So we suffered with him through that, and he finally got that, and it was so freaking awesome when he shot that. And that exists. I mean, like, that's one of those things. It's forever memorialized. No one will ever do that again. I don't believe
No.
anybody will ever do that again. But we have that, and I was there. It was cool, man. That is one of those stories that stands up, man. And now that I've told the story a second time in a week, obviously I need to go dig through the archives and find that segment and roll it out on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, for
I'll
sure.
shoot you a message. I'll shoot y'all a message. I'll let y'all know when that hits the YouTube channel.
Yeah, let me know because I want to look it up. That guy was
Yeah, it's
such a
good.
legend, man. He transcended shooting sports in the
100%.
mainstream. I meet people all the time, especially like the other day. I was at the gym and a new guy came into the gym and he's working out next to me and I'm with my trainer and we're talking about the upcoming world shoot and all that. And he goes, "Oh, you're a shooting sports athlete. That's cool." He goes, "Man." He goes, "I used to watch Bob Munden as a kid." And I'm like, "Oh, or are you a shooting guy?" And he goes, "No, I don't even own a gun."
Yep.
And I'm like, that's the
Huh?
level. That's the
That's
level
cool.
as a
Yeah, I mean,
shooting
it
sports
it
athlete you would like
transcends.
to get to.
It transcends, man. It's neat. It's
I
neat.
bet when he hit that, y'all were all just
Oh, I
freaking
mean,
out.
it was one of those things. It was just like,
Pandemonium.
he's the best. He's one of the best forever.
The video where he shot the 2 balloons and it
Mm.
sounded like one shot,
One shot. Mm.
still to this day, I
Mm.
can't figure out how that's not trick cinematography.
No, he did that. He would fan it, right? He would
Still.
fan 3. He would fan 3 shots. And I mean, he never did 3. He did that back in the American shooter days, but hey, Dude's asking about my sideburns. That's funny. The sideburns came around because Jim had the lock on the mustache.
Yeah.
I had sideburns at one time that got a little bit outrageous. Like you can see some of those videos where they're like down here. There was this archer dude named Chris Brackett. He had sideburns like that, and I was like, maybe I need to back him off a little bit. Nah, maybe not. And then the truth of the story is, my wife had cut her hair like Claire Underwood, which was very, very hot at the time. But then she was like, I was like, hey, babe, what do you think if you grow your hair back out a little bit? She's like, what do you think if you back those sideburns up a little bit? So now it's basically to the ear. I try to keep them about the ear. But
oh, my God.
It was one of those things where Jim had the mustache, and these work, man.
Now you just got to go full chin strap.
Well, I got this baby's patch down here. I can't really grow a decent
right here, this little spot right here, and this little spot right here don't grow hair. So when I grow all this out, I look like a white trash Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. I've tried it. My wife just tells me every time, don't, just cut it.
Where I wore a whole beard, and Joe Rogan says don't read the comments, but I try not to read the comments, but people were like, what's up with the Just for Men beard, John? Because it was just a beard. It was no mustache. And it's real dark. Well, it was dark. It's getting gray in it now, which is ridiculous, but I mean,
just a little bit of that Just for Men, bro. Just sweep it through a little bit. You'll be all right.
Right.
All right, so we'll jump into another couple of questions. First off, I got to get this one out of the way. Shane Coley asked, why is he your favorite shooter?
Why is Shane Coley my favorite shooter?
Yeah.
Because by far, I mean, and I'm talking far and away, he has the biggest clean and jerk, and I'm talking split jerk. So yeah, he is strong. He is a legit competitive regional CrossFit athlete and top level shooter.
Yeah. He's kind of strong. He still needs to catch that upper body up to his legs.
Wow. And his family, his mom and dad are rad.
Yeah.
Rocky is super cool. He's just one of those guys, man. I've known him since he was in the Army. And
he's a solid dude. Just a solid guy.
Good dude.
Yeah. Fun to hang out with. Fun when you get him off the range.
Yep. No doubt. And they're about to get married. So
yeah.
We'll see. Good times.
So the next one is, since you started this show working with your father, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have the same plans to follow that trend with your kids?
Excellent question. And a lot of people have already met Tripp, John David III. He has been to a couple of nationals now over the course of the last couple of years, working as a third camera. He's a senior in high school now. He has aspirations and designs on being a sports reporter, like a mainstream sports reporter. So he's planning college with that as his focus. However, he has also an understanding and a real knack for the photography side of covering the shooting sports. He's been to a couple of steel challenges. He was at the AG Cup. He's been to a number of different USPSA matches as a cameraman. So yeah, very much the idea of bringing the third generation in is top of mind. I'm in development with a guy here in Middle Tennessee for a new show title that involves sporting dogs, and Tripp was very involved in that shoot over the course of the summer, gathering the elements for that tease and pilot segment that we hope to bring in front of networks here in hopefully before the end of the year, if not Q1.
That's huge.
So yeah, man, the idea of bringing the third generation in is already in the works, very much so. That's
super exciting. I think that's every dad's dream.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What's neat for me is I think back to where I was at 19 when it was like, oh, this is just a way to make quick $100 this weekend, versus his mindset, his creativity, his understanding of the technology and what he has available to him in the form of the cameras and different things, as opposed to what the cameras were like when I was, 19, he's 17, and well, he's 18 now, but it's night and day. Yeah.
You had those giant luggage racks on your shoulder.
Right. So, it's cool. It's also cool when I put together a show and there's video that he worked on, and I send him a link. I'm like, hey, remember this? Take a look at this. And he sits there and he counts his shots. And he's like, that was my shot. That was my shot. I'm like, that's what's up, man. So,
Hell
yeah.
yeah. So the next question, we'll answer this one in a second. The next question was, when are we going to see you shoot an open gun at Open Nationals?
So interesting question. I don't have, well, this year, Open Limited Nationals, I have to produce, so I won't be shooting, unfortunately. Yeah. I've got a GM, like I've got an old STI GM in the safe in 38 Super. Put some batteries in that Seymour, and I've got a holster.
Hey, man, next year's Area 4, you need to just come out just to shoot. And bring the open gun. We'll have a good time.
That might not be a bad idea. I've figured out if I've got enough mags for that 38 Super.
I've got plenty of mags. Don't
Everybody, yeah, no doubt.
I've got guns. I've got mags. Just show up.
All right.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of Atlas is somehow they gave me a stable of open guns and mags to hand out to people.
I'll tell you, it's tricky from the standpoint that I have to manage time very carefully because of how many weekends, like for instance, the next 4 weekends straight, I'm covered up somewhere. When I have a weekend home, like I have been very thankful to have this weekend home, we're spending time. We had a belated birthday dinner last night, and we went out to a brunch this morning, my wife and my daughter, because she's on fall break from college. The other two are on fall break. One's at a skateboarding competition in South Carolina, and the other is Trip is down in Florida at Destin with his friends from high school. A senior group of friends went down there. And then my oldest son is National Guard, and he's at college. So, when I have these opportunities to be at home, I have to be very careful about that particular amount of time. So it's challenging to say to them, hey, I'm going to go shoot. I'm going to take off and go shoot.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, it's tricky. So I'll give you a solid maybe.
Solid maybe. I'll take a solid maybe. The next one was, what is your all-time favorite blooper moment? And is there video evidence?
Golly. So, I mean, it's hard to say. When it comes to bloopers, there was a time, especially when Mike and I worked together very closely, where I would put bloopers out on the internet all the time. And they were mostly just flubs, just word flubs, and then how we would laugh about a word flub after the fact. But one wasn't so much a comedy blooper with video evidence, but it was how I unfortunately ended with one extra shot my single stack nationals 2 years ago. And that was a complete lack of attention to the chamber and, an unload, show clear, if clear, hammer down, bang. It happened on camera, and it put me in a position to decide whether or not I was going to shelve it, kick it to the edit room floor, or, which everybody knows at this point, run it on the show. And it wasn't that it was so much a blooper, haha, funny thing. It was a learning moment and a reaffirmation that, number one, the 4 rules of firearm safety are there for a reason. And as long as you can follow at least 2 of them, you can pretty well prevent catastrophe. Number 2, it was a big learning moment for me because it was on a gun that had done the same thing earlier in the match, but the RO had seen in the chamber. And when I had seen in the chamber at the same time, this particular instance was after the entire match was over. And I was tired, admittedly, and I was complacent, and I was lack of attention. And when I took the mag out, the mag was empty. So I figured when I racked it real fast that the gun was empty too. And when it wasn't, number one, I'm DQ'd. So all of the work for the entire match is now a 0. But number 2, on 3 cameras, I've just exposed that level of complacency. And I guarantee you, and I guaranteed the audience when I put this in front of them, that would never, ever happen again. That will never happen again. I will never drop the hammer on any chamber that I have not physically looked in. Like, I will never, ever do that again. And it's easy to say that, but it's something else to have had that happen and now reaffirm that. And most of the people who saw that, who wouldn't otherwise react to the show in any way, reacted in a positive way. Thank you for showing that. That happened to me once. Thank you for this. There were a handful that came back with, you shouldn't be on television, or you're a complete idiot, find a new course of,
Haters gonna hate.
Find a new career, blah, blah, blah. But from a blooper standpoint, caught on camera mistake, that was one that became a learning moment and was very important, which honestly, I went back and forth. Should I put this out there? And actually, after it was all said and done, I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, I had a similar situation at Area 6. I DQ'd on the second to last stage, and for a brief second I went, oh man, I think I'm going to keep that one on myself. And then I went, nope. Yep. Put it out there. 180.
It's important, man. I mean,
and it was funny because when it happened, right, when I broke the 180, I didn't think I had broken the 180. And I kept going, kept shooting until I heard the stop command, obviously. So then when he goes, yeah, you DQ'd, you broke the 180, I went, no way. And I turn around and look, and the first person I make contact with is the person videoing me, which is Christian Seiler. And he's like, and I went, oh, shit, I broke the 180.
I've got some good ones. So you can imagine at some of these matches we've been to over the years, I've got some full-on, like, gun in the camera kind of stuff. And it's it's part of it. It's part of it. But yeah.
So we'll go ahead and wrap up here with I like to do this segment. I didn't do it the last two, and I got yelled at. Who is your if we had a Mount Rushmore of shooting? Who, in your opinion, would be on that?
Okay, so is it all shooting or is it just practical shooting?
All shooting sports.
Okay, wow. That's a tough one. No prep. Well, I mean, obviously Jerry has to be on there. Like, nobody can touch Jerry when it comes to his record with the revolver. The only reason anyone else won the IRC is because Jerry stopped. You have to recognize, dang, that's hard because I don't want to pigeonhole it just to guys who are practical shooters, but I would say you have to recognize a guy like Nils. You know what I mean? An understated guy who has, I don't know, approaching 20 national championships in different divisions. But then you can't not recognize somebody like Julie Golub, who has a national championship in all of the divisions. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's like,
and dude, other shooting sports.
Right. You got to recognize a guy like Doug Koenig, who's the most dominant force in arguably the most challenging of the pistol sports in the form of the Bianchi Cup. Dang, man, it's hard. That's a hard question. And then you got to throw in the new blood like Christian Seiler, who is now, triple open national champion, and says to me, I'm hunting champions, not championships. Meaning his focus this year is hone his craft so that he can go and beat Eric at Worlds instead of taking time to run a carry optics gun, which he could have easily been a top 3, if not the carry optics national champion. I mean, his level of skill is such that
unreal.
You know what I mean? He plays on a different field right now.
Yeah. He said, he said by the end of this year, I want to have a Legends head on my trophy case.
That's right. I'm hunting champions, not championships, meaning it doesn't mean as much if I didn't beat the guy. I can go there and win the match. If the guy's not there, I didn't get what I want.
Yep.
That is a legit champion mindset. So, I mean, Mount Rushmore's got to have more than 4 heads on it. You got to recognize the fact that there are other sports. Like, you got to look at the guys who dominate in the PRS. You got to look at the guy and girls. You know what I mean? You got to look at people like Allison Zane at 16 years old. She is a top 5 AG Cup shooter. She's invited to the finale the last 2 years in a row and is easily top shooter against all of the guys, and if not top 3 whenever she goes anywhere. And she's 16.
That's crazy.
It's nuts, man, when you look at that kind of thing. So,
well, let's narrow it down then.
Okay.
Let's narrow it to practical pistol sports.
Okay. So obviously you got to put Jerry on there. You got to put Julie on there, but you got to put the Williams sisters on there. You got to put Max on there. You can't not put Shane Coley on there. You can't not put Bob Vogel on there. You know what I mean? That's like, dude,
I
that's
know.
hard.
I
That's a
know.
hard
Yeah.
question. I wish you'd
That's
have
a
let me
very
prepare
hard
for that
question.
one
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I really want to handicap that out and be like, well, this is why I put these people on there. You know what I mean? But
Well, I tell you
wow.
what, we'll save that segment for the next time you come on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Count me in again.
I'll give you some. I'll give you a couple weeks to prepare for that one.
That's a tough one, dude. That's a
That's a
tough one. I
toughie.
like that question a lot. I
All
do.
right,
I really do.
now we're gonna end it here.
Okay.
Give me your pick to win each of the upcoming 4 nationals.
Okay. Well, this is cool because you know who else does this same kind of thing is that the Hit Factor podcast. Those guys do this
Mm-hmm.
whole who are your picks and all of that. So in in the open division, how can you not like Christian? You know what I mean? It's like, dude, go for the 4. For me, at least, that's a good story. And
It's crazy.
you know, I don't know. I haven't looked at the squatting to see who's coming to try to do anything about it, but I don't think they can do much about it
With
if
a
they
world
wanted to.
shoot, I don't think anybody would do that.
Well, I mean, that's the point. So, as far as limited goes, again, I don't know who's shooting it. PS Photog likes Christian, Shane, Nils, and Max. In limited, dude, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pick against Nils if he decides to shoot that. You know what I mean? And he decides to do it with a 40. You know, last year shooting it with the 9mm, and I'm like, man, why don't you score competitively? Or well, you know, I don't know.
I know he's shooting a 40 for world shoot in standard
Yeah,
division.
so now's the time.
Now's the
So
time to show up and shoot it at a nationals.
he is on a roll. He shoots well in Alabama, and I think he might be the guy. But again, I haven't seen Blake all year. I don't know what Blake Miguez has been doing. You never know with him. So, you know, yeah, that's a crapshoot because then there's I don't know. I don't think Todd is competitive anymore. So I don't think Todd's going to dark horse that one. But you know, what if a guy like Seeklander comes over and gets hot and shoots straight? What if
Vogel comes back?
well, you got Bob, but I think Bob's making plenty of money doing his training. But what if like a guy like Elias gets hot and like doesn't have a blow up?
He's a world champion.
Exactly. I mean, these are guys who can do it, who know what it takes to do it. So I don't know. That'll be the fun one, and I'm glad that I'm producing that because it's like, can Christian go for a 4th in a row, an unprecedented 4 open division national championships in a row? That's awesome. Who's going to win limited? We'll find out after this. You know what I mean? I don't know. As far as PCC, it's impossible to pick against
Leah Grandis.
Yeah, Max, Leah Grandis. But I do know that Josh is working hard, Freilich. I knew that Scott is always working hard. And shout out to Josh and F5 Productions. They produced the social media content during Carry Optics Nationals for the USPSA. And I told him in person, and I told his edit guy and his photographer in person, this is some of the best looking stuff of this kind that I've ever seen. You guys are killing it.
Great.
And they were editing on the spot in the Stat Shack, which is what, you know, I mean, I'm like, okay, that for me is a proof of concept. This can be done. So it'll be interesting to see what Josh can do because I know he is working hard. I know he wants to win that. But for whatever reason, man, when Max shoots that stuff, he never looks like he's trying hard. It's just all of a sudden it's over. And it's like, okay, wow, that's fast. That's really fast.
Yeah.
And then in production, I mean, you got to like Shane. You got to like Nils. I don't know. We'll see.
Mason Lane, too.
Well, and then there's another one. Mason dark horsing the limited division last
year. Jacob
year.
Hetherington?
Yeah. Oof. I mean, again, and yeah, when we start dropping the Army boys' names, you know, that's one of those things. Those dudes, you never know. John Browning is always good for a soundbite. Is John Browning a threat in the limited division? I think he's a top 5er.
If John Browning gets hot, if he gets hot early, I think the problem with John is he gets off to a slow start.
Yeah.
If John comes out swinging from jump, dude, he's a dangerous dude.
Yeah. It's these are some of the fun times, man. These are some of the exciting events.
Yeah.
And I know the courses of fire are going to be good, you know. I mean, it's just one of those things because of the pairings of the divisions. Now, I think the open and limited pairings are advantageous to the courses of fire and course design. I wonder about the PCC and production pairings, because how do you make something that's doable fast for a production shooter and still make it hard for PCC shooters? Or how do you make something that's challenging for PCC shooters that's even doable for production shooters? I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to see.
It'll be interesting to see if they find a good blend, because if they can't find a good blend, it's either going to be too hard for the production guys or far too easy for the PCC guys.
Right. Which, at the end of the day,
either way, it could be fun.
If it's a cool production match and PCCs can shoot it in like 2/3 of the time, and like it's just a barn burner for the PCCs, that might make an interesting match as well. And does that play to an advantage for a guy like Scott and or Josh against Max Lee Grandis? I don't know. It's hard to. We'll find out.
Yeah, we're gonna find out.
That's right.
After this.
We'll find out. That's right. We'll find out.
This has been an absolute pleasure, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on. And
dude, thank you for having me. And we did an hour and 50 minutes, and it seemed like 15 minutes. So.
Dude, I'm telling you, these sometimes get to 4 hours long.
Oh, that's cool.
And it gets outrageous. But yeah, I tell you what, the next time I have you on here, I think it would be fun to have you on for one of our roundtables where we get a couple of the industry guys in and we talk about industry stuff.
Yep.
Because you're so knowledgeable in this, I think it will be crazy. And the Ely guy said sideburns forever.
Yeah, I love it. I'm about it, dude. Wear them. Ear length, right? Ear length. They're in regs.
Ear length. Yeah. They're in regulation.
Yep.
But man, this has been so much fun. When I asked you to do this, I didn't think you were going to do it. And then when you were like, hell yeah, I was like, oh, word. This is going to be so fun.
Yeah, I'll do it. Count me in, bro. Thanks, Trevor. I appreciate it, man. It was fun.
I can't thank you enough, brother.
We'll do it again.
Hell yeah, we will.
Right on, dude.
All righty. Thank you, brother.
Right. See ya. Boop.
What a legend. What a legend. I mean, that guy, how he is right now is how he is in real life. I love that guy. He's just so fun to be around. Every time I've been him in person, he's excited. He's friendly. He's still got that great voice and the sideburns. But I was a little taken back when he said he would do the show. So this is pretty awesome. We're definitely going to have him back, maybe for a roundtable, because you know how those roundtables get. They get a little crazy and they get a little fun, but they throw a lot of good information out there. And he's so knowledgeable. He'll drop some bombs on some people. So I think it'll be a good one. But if you made it this far, thank you so much. You're the reason I can do this. And if you would be so kind as to comment and subscribe and hit the bell icon on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on a podcast, please leave a review. It helps. And leave a good one or a bad one. It is what it is. Yes, thank you, John, very much. And thank you to everybody who interacted and listened. If you made it this far, you're a true warrior. I can't thank you enough. I've got some exciting ones coming up. I think it's going to be pretty good. Also have some big announcements, and we'll get into that probably after Nationals. So anyway, if you're going to Nationals and you see me, come up, say hi. I love when people come up and say they enjoy the podcast. It makes me feel like doing this is worth it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and I will see you on the range.